You know that dream of a sudden, total transformation, like that lightning bolt moment where, bam, everything just clicks and you're a whole new person. It's this super powerful idea, right? We see it in stories all the time.
And this phrase, it perfectly captures that whole idea, doesn't it? Instant, life-altering change. It's dramatic, it's full of hope, and it's something a lot of us really want. But what if that kind of super fast transformation isn't what it seems? An 18th century theologian named Jonathan Edwards, he looked at this whole concept with some serious suspicion.
Okay, so let's really get into this, because Edwards makes this totally fascinating, kind of counterintuitive argument. He basically says that true, lasting change, it's almost never sudden. In fact, he believed that when change happens way too fast, it's actually a huge red flag that it's not going to stick.
All right, so to really unpack his warning, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with his main idea, look at a key metaphor he uses, then compare two types of change. After that, we'll get into the dangers of moving too fast, cover some exceptions to his rule, and finally, wrap up with his big takeaway on what true commitment really is.
So this whole explainer is based on a sermon by Jonathan Edwards, and in it, he's trying to figure out why these sudden religious conversions he was seeing were so often, well, superficial, and, as he puts it, false. He noticed this pattern, you see. People who seem to have this overnight transformation would often just go right back to their old ways just as fast.
And to make his case, Edwards does something really brilliant. He builds his entire argument around the biblical parable of the sower. It's this fantastic analogy for how different people take in a new idea or a new belief. And he zeroes in on one very specific outcome from that parable.
Okay, so the sequence here is what's so key. You've got this new idea, the seed, and it lands on stony ground. Now, there's only a little bit of soil on top of rock, so it can't go deep. And because it's so shallow, it sprouts, like almost immediately. It looks like a huge success. But then, the sun comes out. And that sun represents any kind of hardship or trial. And because that little plant has no deep roots to get water, it just withers and dies, almost as fast as it grew. For Edwards, this is the perfect model of a false conversion.
So, Edwards uses this really powerful image to draw a sharp contrast. You've got the stony ground convert on one side, who changes in a flash, and then you have the good ground convert on the other, whose whole transformation is a completely different story.
All right, let's break this down a bit. The stony ground person, they receive the idea anon with joy, which just means like right away and with a ton of excitement. But there's no depth of earth, no real foundation. So the second things get tough, they just wither. It's a temporary thing. Now, the good ground person, their start is way more gradual. They take the time to develop deep roots of understanding, and that's what helps them push through the hard times. For them, it's a lifelong commitment. And for Edwards, that first big, flashy burst of joy, that's the real red flag.
So, you might be asking, why is the speed so dangerous, right? Why is that instant, joyful yes such a warning sign? Well, Edwards gives two really deep psychological reasons for this.
Okay, reason number one is a lack of self-knowledge. Think about it. A person who changes in an instant hasn't really had time to grapple with their own character, their flaws, their weaknesses, where they fall short. Edwards says they haven't had time to dig deep into their own heart. And without that kind of tough self-awareness, their new belief is just built on this really shallow, fragile foundation that's going to crack the second any real pressure is applied.
And the second reason? They just haven't counted the cost. They fall in love with the idea of the change, but they haven't seriously thought about what it's actually going to take. I mean, true, lasting commitment to anything, a belief, a job, a relationship, it demands this huge lifelong effort. It means self-denial and pushing through suffering. Edwards has this great analogy for it. It's like someone who starts building a tower without checking if they can actually afford to finish it. They're all in at the beginning, but they bail the moment the bills start coming due.
Okay, now, it's super important to get this straight. Edwards isn't saying this is a 100% absolute rule. He's a much more nuanced thinker than that. He's actually very clear that not every sudden change is a fake-out. He knows there are some legitimate exceptions.
So for instance, he points to these big moments in history, like the day of Pentecost. He calls these times of extraordinary pouring out of the Spirit, where, tons of true, sudden conversions absolutely happened. He also brings up famous biblical examples like the Apostle Paul. But, and this is a big but, he really stresses that in our normal, everyday lives, these are exempt instances. They are the rare exception, not the rule. But then Edwards adds this really critical warning. He says that even during those amazing, extraordinary times, false conversions are also popping up everywhere.
It's like when the good seed is being sown, the enemy comes right behind to sow tares, basically weeds among the good stuff. He uses another fantastic metaphor here. A big summer rain makes good fruit grow for sure, but it also causes a bunch of mushrooms to pop up overnight, and those just wither and die as soon as the sun hits them.
So, where does this all leave us? What's the big takeaway here? If that sudden, easy change is so suspicious, then what does the real, lasting kind actually look like?
And this brings us to his most crucial point. For Edwards, a truly changed person isn't defined by one single moment, one big decision. Nope, they're defined by the attitude of their heart. Are they actually willing to sign up for a constant, perpetual seeking and serving God for their entire life? See, it's not about the sprint. It's about having the heart for the marathon.
And that is really the core message. Don't mistake a short, intense, emotional high for a genuine life-altering commitment. Real change isn't some destination you just arrive at. It's a tough road you have to commit to walking every single day for the rest of your life. It's a constant process, a constant striving. It's not some prize you win and then just stick on a shelf.
And all this leaves us with a pretty provocative question, one that goes way beyond 18th century theology and hits us right where we live today. I mean, think about it. A new job, a new relationship, that New Year's resolution to finally hit the gym. How many times do we jump in with all that initial joy and enthusiasm without really counting the cost or doing the hard work of digging deep? Edwards' warning is this incredibly powerful reminder that, the flashiest beginnings don't always guarantee the strongest endings. Real, lasting change isn't built in a single moment. It's built over a lifetime.